Good evening, everybody. This is Abby Pearsall, the Planning Director. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am going to go ahead and read a quick statement into the record just to give folks an idea of the proceedings for the meeting, and then we will continue on. So for folks on the call tonight, thank you for joining us. This is a web-based call and we're operating under the following procedures. This meeting is being audio and video recording. A recording of this video will be available within 24 hours and will be posted to the Town of Waterford's Planning Department website. To ensure good sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute unless they are speaking. If an attendee creates an audio or visual disruption, the Zoom moderator may place them on mute or remove them from the meeting if the disruption continues. We will not use the chat feature in this meeting. There are 3 projects on the Commission's agenda this evening, including a public hearing for a subdivision and a pre-application discussion. The public hearing for PL 20-16 for Fabcon's proposed redevelopment of the Waterford Airport is closed, and no comment will be accepted when the Commission deliberates later this evening. For tonight's public hearing, please listen for the chair to announce the public comment period. When the chair announces that period tonight, you may give your comments in the following manner. Use the raise hand feature in Zoom and wait to be called on. Before the hearing closes, we'll ask for any new comments from people who are only able to join by phone or who are unable to use the raise hand feature. If multiple people attempt to speak at once, we'll help to moderate. We appreciate your attendance at this meeting. Should you have any questions about this process, you may call our staff at 860-444-5813 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday to Friday. And with that, I will turn it over to our chair for a roll call.
All right, thank you, Abby. We will now call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Waterford on this day, November 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. And Mark will conduct the roll call.
Okay, with the roll, Joe Bunkley.
Here.
John Bashoff.
Here.
Tim Bleasdale.
Tim is coming in right now, so we'll sort of out.
Okay. Greg Massett.
Here.
Joe DeBono. Absent. Karen Barnett.
Here.
And Tim Bleasdale. Oh, let's give Tim a couple seconds to get his microphone up and running. Good. Okay, Tim Bleasdale.
I'm here. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, we're all set.
Okay, Karen, we will seat you for Joe DeBono.
Okay.
All right, item number 2 will be approval of the November 9, 2020 meeting minutes.
This is John Bash. I move approval of the minutes.
And this is Tim Bleasdale. I'll second that.
All right, thank you. All in favor, John,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Karen,
Aye.
and I am in favor also, so meeting minutes are accepted. Item number 3, receipt of applications.
We have no new applications.
Thank you. Item number 4, pre-application informal presentation, a proposed residential community at 48 Great Neck Road. So you have the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Joe Wren. I'm a professional engineer representing Gordy and Skip Adams, Adams Builders. We submitted for informal discussion and review a narrative from the applicant, a marketing analysis for you, and also some preliminary conceptual plans. We know that you have a long agenda and we're respectful of your time. So what I wanted to do is quickly just go through the outline of this narrative, go through the plans with you very quickly, and then Stan Nizdowski, hopefully Stan, I got that pronunciation correct, would like to go through the marketing analysis for you. And with our quick outline and our review, we just want to show how we believe we conform to your Section 19 regulation for a PDD. This would be PDD number 2 in town. And it would essentially, more or less in a nutshell, add 39 single-family condominium units to a piece of property on Great Neck Road. which the land would be in common ownership. The units would be individually owned themselves, similar to a condominium. And it would all be served by public water and sewer that's already in Great Neck Road. So we feel it complies to your section 19. So without any further ado, just quickly get into this narrative that Abby already has up here. And I am just going to paraphrase just in the interest of time. And the first paragraph just goes through the location, 48 Great Neck Road. It's just south of Defender Industries, across from the Americana Furniture, former Americana Furniture there, right across the street, and the Henny Penny gas station on the other side of Great Neck Road. Defender Industries is a wholesale marine warehouse. That's to the north. To the south is Great Neck Village. And to the east, we have open land that belongs to the town of Waterford. And then, of course, on the west, we're bounded by Great Neck Road. Second paragraph, what the applicant is proposing is 39 residents, planned community on common land. The homes will be on the smaller side, 2 stories, approximately 1,250 square feet with 1-car garages. There would be green spaces and a walking trail through the forested areas, along with a chip putting green, 2 full-size bocce courts, and an 18 by 36 timber frame open air pavilion. The residents will access their homes via a private road and a 3rd-mile woodland walking trail around the development. All the landscaping will consist of grasses and hydrangeas and flowering street trees. Home designs are Cape Cod style cottages and 3 distinct designs that have 3 or 4 variations each. This gives us 12 options to offer to the customers and to mix it up so it's not all very similar throughout the development. The applicant believes this project would be a beautiful transition in the Great Neck area, and it gives the aging population an option to downsize and stay in town, which minimizes the burden on the town's infrastructure. The 39 units would share common land. A fee approximately $250 per unit would maintain the road, grounds, and common spaces. The base price will start at $299, though we choose not to designate any units as affordable. We have determined that they are affordable, in fact. The next paragraph or 2 just goes through some quick numbers using HUD lower income qualifications for the general area based on the average income in Waterford. So the housing costs are broken down with a $299 sale price, 15% down payment, goes through and it comes out with an annual cost of $23,819. Abby, if you can scroll down a bit, thank you. This proves that we meet the affordable housing threshold. Mortgage rates may vary, but by applicant, but could be as low as 2.6%. These calculations do not take into account any deductions allowed by HUD regulations as well. With the use of the PDD at this location is more desirable to a broad range of people than alternative use allowed in the zone, according to the marketability analyst who will be speaking momentarily. This property could be used, it's currently zoned industrial, so it could be used to develop flexible storage units, as well as some larger warehouse spaces, which are permitted uses in the IG zone. This would be offered to tradespeople, as well as car, boat, and motorhome owners for storage. Warehouse and storage space is clearly saturated in Waterford and neighboring towns. And 35 Great Neck Road offers 50,000 square feet of vacant warehouse and showroom space. So that just gets into that the uses that are allowed in the IG zone, the current underlying zone. Generally, there are some of those uses in the area. They are saturated. The applicant feels that this is a much better use for Waterford residents and the general area. The next paragraph just introduces realty concepts. Stan will be speaking momentarily, so I'll let him go through that paragraph. And just the last paragraph just says that it's the applicant's opinion that this elevated use for 48 Great Neck is one that is desirable to residents and physically attractive, is designed with considerable green spaces, minimal road width, driveway lengths, and housing size. It also maximizes per acre density with conservation in mind. The freestanding unit concept also allows a sense of homeownership not offered by a condo or apartment. We also intend to build these highly efficient, well insulated, and use LEED LEED certified qualifications to guide our construction approach. The intent is to have zero emission producing residences with all electric heat and air conditioning, as well as LED lighting. So with that, we'll just jump into the plans quickly. And Abby, you can just choose one. One's with topography and one without, doesn't matter which one. So this is the concept plan on the 12-acre site. You can see less than half is utilized for the residences back here. There is a wetland corridor that comes through Great Neck Village towards Defender Industries to the north. This would have 3 units up by Great Neck Road and a common private driveway back over with a wetland crossing similar to Great Neck Village. Would have a wetland bridge crossing at this location, and then it would have this loop with all the residences surrounding it. Recently, upon a few meetings with town staff, we have shrank this to a certain degree to pull all of the houses out of the 100-foot review area from wetlands. These shaded areas are wetlands. The other green areas are generally wooded, forested areas. So all of the houses you will see are outside the 100-foot review area, not only in the back, but also in the front. And the interior line is a 50-foot buffer to the wetlands, but we pulled everything out 100 feet. We may have some stormwater management basins that are partially within the 100-foot buffer, but for the most part, everything is pulled out of those sensitive areas. Going around the loop road, we have houses on both sides with short driveways, small house footprints to reduce impervious cover. We have a 20-foot road width, again, to reduce impervious surfaces. We have limited use of curbing. We're trying to promote overland flow and direction to these stormwater management basins before the stormwater is discharged into the wooded upland buffer as it travels down toward the wetland area. So no direct discharges into any wetland area. On the front side, we have these 3 units on the south side of the new private road. On the north side, we have a chip and putt green here. These are just allocating spaces for this now. These could be sorted in any manner, but just to, in compliance with section 19 of PDD regulation, these are over and above appurtenances to the community and the neighborhood that we feel meets the spirit and the intent of that regulation. We looked into, and Stan will get into this a little bit more, we looked into a commercial building out front, but now, especially this year with COVID and the reduction of commercial office spaces and brick and mortar fronts in the IG zone, we felt that this was a better amenity to the future residents than any commercial building would be. So just to finish this off, we have a post and beam style barn here that could be used for gatherings post-COVID, of course. And then 2 full-size bocce courts as well. This hatched area along the northern edge of the private road, and I'm thinking you could see my mouse, but you can't, is a sidewalk. It's a dedicated portion of the pavement that would be striped accordingly as a sidewalk to connect Great Neck Road to the back development for residents who jog or walk. Then there would be a walking trail between the bridge and the intersection of the loop road. There's a crosswalk, and there is a walking trail that you can see all the way around the loop area. That's about 1/3 of a mile long. So folks can walk their dogs, or take a bike ride or a jog or walk through the woods and access the amenities in the front and Great Neck Road for longer distance runs and jogs as well. So we feel that there's a lot of amenities provided here, something that would be very attractive to the residents. And again, we feel that it meets the spirit and the intent of section 19 while preserving the open spaces, the wooded areas, all the wetlands, the buffers around the wetlands, adding to stormwater quality, And also with all of the units being LEED certified or LEED targeted with zero or close to zero emissions with the fuel choices, we feel is a very, very nice project. So with that, I'll just let Stan jump in and go through his preliminary marketing analysis that he prepared. And then we can answer any questions you may have. Abby's just showing you some of the renderings of the houses right now, but again, 12 different variations of those homes to mix them up. Okay, Stan, you're on.
Yep, I just had to hit the mute button. Good evening, everybody. My name is Stanley Yazdowski. I'm president of Realty Concepts Incorporated in Guilford, Connecticut. We're a consulting and advisory firm, do appraisal work. I was engaged to perform a preliminary development impact study. A little bit about my qualifications. I have a CRE designation. There's about 1,400 of us in the world that have that. That's the highest designation one can get. Also a CCIM and senior instructor in that program. I teach investment analysis and market analysis. And I just retired after 25 years at NYU from what is now known as the Schack Institute of Real Estate. And I taught investment analysis, and particularly my area of concentration was market analysis, demographics. And that's what I was teaching at NYU. The subject property was well described by Joe. I'm not going to reiterate that, but I want to emphasize the other terminology that's referenced for the condominium. They're also called zero lot line units, meaning that the land is in common and the individual owner of the property is responsible for all repairs and maintenance. In this situation, the only common fee that will be charged is for the road and ground care maintenance. So the repairs and maintenance of all the structures are the responsibility of the condominium unit owner. And there will be guidelines and rules and regulations which must be followed to maintain the exterior of the property once the project is approved. The other thing to point out that there is no cost to the town for site work or road maintenance because it's a private road. That would be taken care of within that $250 a month common fee for the subject property. One of the questions that was raised is, what is the demand for a project like this? Well, a couple things have happened. The primary driver behind demand today is lifestyle, okay? And there's some impact from COVID-19. What COVID-19 has done is accelerated the decline for office demand, in particular for retail. But it has accelerated the demand for residential properties. And COVID-19 has also forced a change in the demand for type of units. The subject property are all 2-bedroom units. For the apartment complexes that we've done recently, which is over 600 units we've analyzed and consulted on, the preponderance of the units being rented are 2 bedrooms. And what people are doing is they're coming in and living in the unit and using the 2nd bedroom for their office. Here, though, the situation is a little bip different. Waterford has a median family home price, according to tip of tongue phenomena, excuse me, from the Warren report of $276,000. And that was an increase of about 11.46% year-to-year increase from 2019 to 2020. And the subject sale property is going to sell at $299,000. So we're within range of the median sale price for property for the town of Waterford. Waterford has an estimated median income of about $78,000 and an average income of about $102,000 with a median net worth of about $252,000. So the demand on lifestyle is trending towards the zero lot line units. And COVID is also impacting the demand where people want to be separated. They don't want to congregate in a single building condominium. The other thing that the project it would do is afford the ability for residents of the town of Waterford to stay in the town. So if they live in a larger house or they're retirement age and they want to downsize, they have the ability to buy property at a reasonable price and stay within Waterford and maintain their Waterford lifestyle. But it also opens up the door to the opportunity for someone who is entering the market for their first home and is not planning on having a large family, is to have a 2-bedroom freestanding house in a condominium complex. And one of the things that's happening is that, you know, Generation X millennials, they have the propensity to have everything done for them. Well, here's the opportunity. They won't have to take care of the lawn and they won't have to maintain the roads. So that would be afforded to them for this type of project. One of the other questions that's always rises is how many school-age children? Well, I took the liberty to do an analysis, preliminary analysis, and based on market research and projects that are in the area and out of the area, I used apartments. The reason I used apartments is because the propensity to have more children in an apartment. And if applying the same analysis to this project would produce or could produce about 4 public school age children. That was my estimate based on the research that I've done and will be supported in the final report. The subject property should produce about $249,000 of real property taxes and personal property taxes. What I mean by personal property taxes, everybody knows or thinks of and recognizes the real property tax, but the personal property tax is predominantly generated from automobiles. So I did an estimate and came up with about $249,000 tax revenue that would be positively generated out of this project. So the proposed development offers an alternative to traditional single-family living for empty nesters, seniors seeking reduced maintenance cost, while providing the ability to maintain close to their family, their lifestyle, their physicians, and other activities that they're concerned about. Just down the bottom of the report that you see here, you'll see generation data. Why is that important? Because that's who's going to be buying these going forward. Baby boomers, based on the information that I have for the town of Waterford, you have about 5,000 baby boomers, Gen X about 4,000, and millennials 3,000. So you can see that it falls within a range for a starter or for someone who wants to improve their lifestyle and maintain the Waterford lifestyle by downsizing to an affordable single-family unit in this condominium complex. So the project is in demand, and I could tell you that looking at other complexes or other towns, other developers are starting to trend this way also to the zero lot line concept, which is a good concept. And that basically is my report, unless anybody has any questions. Well, down below, yeah, you could scroll down. This is the recent 2020 demographic data. You could take a look at this at your leisure, but it compares Waterford to the county, to the state, and to the nation. And the data is from Esri, which is the top of the food chain for demographic data. And it's there for your leisure to look at. And if you have any questions, I'll be very happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you very much. Any commission members have any questions or comments at this time?
Yeah, I have one. I'm just curious, what zone is this located in?
This is the IG zone.
Yes,
Are there currently residential uses allowed in that zone?
no, there are not.
Okay, so would this applicant be proposing a text amendment? When I was reading through the materials, it wasn't clear, but I assume they must have to.
No, what they're doing is actually proposing a zone change.
Okay.
The PDD, Plan Design District, we had done one, we did one and approved one for the Aldi's shopping center there, the Aldi's store. This is kind of like an overlay district, section 19 of the zoning regs. So
Okay.
they would need to come in for a map amendment, the zone change.
Thank you.
Karen's got her hand up.
This is John Bashaw. Just one comment. I mean, we are trying in Waterford to accomplish our obligation to meet the affordable housing target. I think we're shooting for a target of 10%. I think that's what all municipalities are shooting for. And you know, we're not there. And while this from this presentation indicates that this would meet those targets, it's apparent that you're not applying in a way that would allow us to allocate some of these units towards our affordable housing target. And that's just something that, you know, is a bit of a concern to me. It seems to me if you can otherwise meet that requirement, why not allocate a portion of the project to actual affordable housing?
Gordy or Skip, you want to handle that question?
Hi guys, this is Gordy.
Can you identify yourself, please?
Yeah, Gordy Adams. We're proposing the PDD, this project at 48 Great Neck. We have talked about allocating some of them potentially, but it was not initially our goal. And actually the reason we're here is to get your input.
Karen has her hand up.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
Karen,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
I just had one quick question regarding the guest parking, it looks like, and including the parking down by the putting green. Have you considered adding, I know that in some of our other meetings, we have a parking requirement for some of these things, and it just doesn't seem like you have all that much guest parking. I know in some of these complexes, sometimes people are not allowed to park on actual driveways. They have to pull into the garages. I'm not sure what your rules will be, but is there an opportunity to add guest parking? It looks like anybody on those long straightaways, if they have somebody visit, they've got a bit of a walk from their car to wherever they're going.
Abby, can you bring the plan back up? This is Joe Wren.
sorry, we've got kind of a slow loading speed here.
That's okay. So all the units have a one-car garage. They all have a driveway that would accommodate at least one additional car. So that's 2 per unit. Then if you look on the loop road, right at the intersection, we have 4 additional guest parking spaces there. On the opposite side, we have 3 additional guest parking. And then down in the front that you had just mentioned, there are 3 there with a handicap space, so that everything, the post and beam barn and the chip and putt would all be accessible for handicap as well. So we have a total of 10 additional guest parking spaces on site with 2 per unit as well. So it'd be 78 plus 10 would be 88 parking spaces.
Yeah, I guess my concern would be even down by the putting green and is it the bocce court? With just 3 spaces for regular cars, if you have, I don't know, a couple people chipping and somebody shows up to play, are they going to park on the side of the road because there's not enough parking? Or, I mean, I'm just kind of throwing this out there. If people are using the bandstand there or whatever, where will they park if there's more than 3 people that want to go use these amenities?
We felt that when they're using the amenities, the weather would be on the nicer side, so that most of them would walk there. Mostly everyone, wanting or desiring active lifestyle. We figured that many people would walk there, but some people would drive. Some people may be coming from Great Neck Road from somewhere else and choose to go there first before they go to their home. So what this is just a concept plan. We are looking for constructive criticism and feedback for sure, so that we can implement it, incorporate it into the plan as we move forward. So we certainly could consider adding a couple more parking spaces there. You can see that there are wetlands there, and we did try to keep the parking just outside of that 100-foot buffer area. So if we do expand to the right, if you will, looking at the plan, we will be heading into that wetland buffer area, but that is something that we can consider for sure.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is,
Greg.
Sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Okay, I just had two questions. One on with respect to John's comments. Abby, did they have to do something for us to count it toward our 10%? It was my understanding that it wasn't necessary for the applicant to do something.
We don't have an inclusionary zoning or a requirement in the regulations today to demand affordable housing through the regulatory process. The things that the commission would consider are the applicant's request to come in under section 19 of the zoning regulations, which is intended to, in terms of use of land and purpose, sort of elevate and provide options that the town may not already have. But that's something that the commission decides whether or not those requirements have been met. But no, there's no provision to restrict formally the deeds of any properties in our current regulations.
No, I guess that wasn't my question. I thought, can't we count properties or developments toward our affordable housing on our own, or does it have to be through an app?
No, so it has to be, there's various criteria, and the one that would be considered here would be complying with deed restrictions. So basically you would be in perpetuity or for a certain period of time typically be restricting the sales price and the potential value of the homes over time, so that they could not, you wouldn't buy them once and then resell them and they would no longer be affordable. You actually have to restrict them on the land records in order to get the credit for them. And so that's not what is being proposed here. There's an argument about the potential sale prices and how that may relate to affordability in town, but there's no discussion outside of what staff has recommended and what the questions are tonight in terms of requiring that restriction, and that has not been offered.
Okay, so I do echo John's comments then that that's something I think that would be favorable to me if the applicant looked at that. My second issue is on the east side, that's the town of Waterford property. Is that correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
Is that landlocked? Because I'm looking at a zoning map, it appears to possibly be landlocked, and I wasn't sure. Or does that have access on Minor Lane?
It all connects to the high school property, so it all goes up and behind. There's the railroad that sort of crosses, so effectively there's not a real easy way back it in there. But it is connected through the high school property.
Okay, thank you.
Wouldn't that go back through the old landfill?
Yeah. Mhm.
So for feedback to the applicant overall, it looks good, pretty good to me.
Yeah, and this is Tim Bleasdale again. I just wanted to add and echo what Greg and John said about the affordability issue. I had noticed that too and just neglected to mention it earlier. But generally speaking, I like the idea of diversifying our housing portfolio the way this would. And I find that intriguing. And I just encourage the applicant to look at the affordability issue more.
Okay, any other comments? Does the applicant or presenter have any questions directly to the commission?
This is Joe Wren. I have no questions at this time. Thank you very much for your time, consideration, and feedback. This is all very useful as we move forward.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night. Be well.
Thank you. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, item number 5. Public hearing, PL 20-26, request of St. Paul Catholic Church Corporation owner and applicant for a two-lot re-subdivision for property located at 170 Rope Ferry Road, R40 zone, and as shown on plans titled re-subdivision property belonging to St. Paul's Catholic Church Corporation, revised through September 29th, 2020. And the public hearing must close by 12/27/20. Is the applicant here?
Yes. Hi, Joe. Good evening.
Excuse me, before you get started, Brian, I'd like to read into the record the exhibit list.
Absolutely.
Okay. Exhibit 1, application and support material. Exhibit 2, plans titled re-subdivision property belonging to St. Paul's Catholic Church Court, dated revised through November 10th, 2020. Exhibit 3, statement of use and consistency. Exhibit 4, public hearing notice published in the Day newspaper on November 14th, 2020 and November 18th, 2020. Exhibit 5, public hearing notification letter to applicant along with certificates of mailing. Exhibit 6, staff report dated November 23rd, 2020. Exhibit 7, report of Conservation Commission action, 170 Rope Ferry Road, inland wetland permit, C-20-16.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Everything good? Yep.
Mr. Floric?
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Brian Floric, Floric Surveying LLC, representing St. Paul's Church, property located at 170 Rope Ferry Road in Granite Court. To give you guys a brief history of the property, the church has owned this property since the 60s. Property where, coincidental with Granite Court, was part of one of the first subdivisions approved in Waterford in 1950. And because it was approved subdivision, this loops me into what the re-subdivision regulations, because part of the lots of Granite Court are part of the lot 2 as we're going to be subdividing. Property, like Mark said, received the conservation approval back a couple months ago. The intention of this subdivision is so the church may sell lot number 2. Granite Court is not served by municipal water and sewer. So you're gonna have to, there will be septic systems or a septic system and municipal or a well, as opposed to municipal water and sewer for Granite Court and lot number 2. It's pretty straightforward project. And like I said, the intention of the church is to sell lot number 2. So with that, I will pass that along for questions, comments, etc.
Does anybody have anything to start with? Hearing none. I guess we can move into the public hearing.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I didn't realize it.
All right, go ahead.
This is Roy Adamson. I own some properties adjacent to the,
Oh, I'm sorry, but not right at the moment. When the public hearing opens up, sir, you'll be able to talk.
okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I misunderstood what the question was. Okay.
So hearing nothing more from the commission, any comments or questions at this time, we can now open the public hearing. So now, sir, you may speak.
Okay, thank you. I was looking at the
Please identify yourself once again and your address.
Sure. My name is Roy Adamson and I own 3 properties along Rope Ferry Road that abut this property that we're discussing. So actually, it's not the church lot though, it's the, whatever they're calling the second portion. So I'm very near Granite Court. that help where I'm talking about? Anyway, the reason for my question is when I was looking at the drawings that were provided, there's a easement along the edge of my property that goes around quite a ways. And I was just curious as who does this easement apply to? And what is the easement for?
So I'd be happy to answer that question. This is Brian Flirk Surveying LLC. The easement was shown on a property survey done for the Roman Catholic Church. It was an unfiled boundary survey done in 1960. The easement was, I believe, for access for Albany's, which would be part of now I can't. John, can you zoom in? No, go back up and then zoom in for me at the top of the. Perfect. Thank you. Billy Ann Colvin's property, which was formerly Albany's property. I feel as my job as a surveyor is to report what I find on the land records. It's not my job to interpret rights as far as who has rights, who has, what the rights are implied as far as easements go. It's just my job to report them. I did find that easement shown on that plan that I mentioned before. So that's why I showed it on the survey. I believe it's for access, but it's not my job to interpret what the easement's for.
All right, thank you. That answer your question, sir?
No, I don't know. I don't think it answered the question for me. And I'm not familiar with this approach to any of this. I've never done this before. So I'm just curious as to how do I went to the town records today and I could not determine from what, I don't have the expertise to determine what the easement is for either. I was hoping somebody could tell me how I could do that, or, is there something I got to hire a lawyer to figure this out?
That's probably your best approach.
Okay. So that's something that's the town doesn't consider in their evaluation here on this approval.
I don't believe so, no.
So if this is an easement for a right of way, per se, to one of those properties, that would that any, so that can be, even though you're splitting this up, it would just be the responsibility of a future owner.
That's correct.
Correct. Any potential interest that another individual may have in the land, the reason the public hearing is open now is for you to understand what's going on, to see the process, to be able to make comment, which the commission can take into consideration in its deliberations, but the commission does not make determinations on what rights are vested between various landowners. And so that would be something to consult your attorney. And there's certainly appeal processes in place for anybody who's concerned about whether or not rights have been abridged in the future. So that would be within your rights and within your attorney's purview to give you that advice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against this application? For the second time, is there anybody who would like to speak for or against this application? Third and last time, is there anybody who would like to speak for or against this application? Okay. Do we want to hear from you guys first before we close the public hearing? We got to close it.
They have my, I submitted into the record a staff report, and we can certainly go over that through deliberation.
But that will be in the next item 6, though, right? Yep.
Yeah, unless there's any questions it brings up that people want to discuss.
All All right, so is there any other comments from the commission at this point to the applicant? All right, hearing none, I'll need a motion to close the public hearing.
John Bashaw, I move that we close the public hearing.
Thank you, John.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tim. All in favor? John,
Aye.
Tim,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
I am also in favor. Motion, public hearing is closed. All right, we'll now move to item number 6, application review, PL-20-26, request of St. Paul Catholic Church Corporation, owner and applicant for a 2-lot re-subdivision for property located at 170 Rope Ferry Road, R40 zone, and as shown on plans, titled re-subdivision property belonging to St. Paul's Catholic Church Corporation, revised through September 29, 2020. Okay, any discussion? All right, you have in front of you Mark's executive summary and the discussion, recommended action. Any questions on that?
No questions from me.
Okay, hearing none, we can accept the motion if you so desire.
Yeah, I'll move that we approve with conditions set forth in the memorandum dated November 23, 2020. That we approve application PL 20-26, a 2-lot re-subdivision located at 170 Rope Ferry Road, with condition 1, in particular noting that all conditions associated with the inland wetlands permit C-2016 shall be incorporated into this decision, and that we adopt the findings 1 through 4 of the staff report.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Karen. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Greg? Tim?
Greg, aye.
All right, thank you, Karen.
Aye.
And I am also in favor, so motion approved.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving on to the next application review is PL-20-16. Request of Fabcon Precast applicant, Nathan Fund 1 LLC, owner for special permit and site plan approval to construct a concrete product manufacturing facility on property located at 140 Waterford Parkway South, IP1 zone, in accordance with sections 13, 22, and 23 of the zoning regulations as shown on plans titled Inland Wetlands Special Permit and Site Plan Application for Concrete Manufacturing Plant dated July 17, 2020. Action is required by January 13, 2021. Okay, so we have had a couple public hearings. We have had a couple presentations from the applicant. And now we are open for deliberation and discussion. Anybody have any questions, comments? It looks like one of the things that we should consider is once again, section 23. And does the applicant meet all of the requirements outlined in section 23? So if you'd like, we could go through each one and deliberate, or if everybody's comfortable, you can take it in its entirety.
This is John Bashaw.
Oh,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Greg.
No, go ahead, John. Go ahead.
I think it might be helpful, even if we do it briefly, to go through each of the individual requirements of the special permit. And just to make sure that we've covered each and every single one as part of this deliberation.
Okay. Would you like me to read them?
I don't know if it's necessary to, well, probably should read what the requirement is.
Okay, let's start with 23.5, which is the findings. Is that what you're talking about, John?
Yeah, I'm talking about the individual findings that set forth in the table that staff prepared. That the first one being section 23.5.1, compliance with the adopted plan of preservation, conservation, and development.
That's not a staff report, John.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's,
Yeah, we provided this.
Okay. With the,
So what the staff attempted to do here was to provide just a quick matrix in which we summarize the direct language from those findings listed in section 23, starting with 23.5.1, provide what the applicant responded to out of their exhibit 75, where they provided their summary of what they believe complies subject to these potential findings. And then any outstanding issues that either staff found or that we still found to be on the table from the third party review, Fuss and O'Neill. All of these are tied to exhibits and information that are in the record. There's no new information here. It's all based on things that have already been presented to you, submitted into the record, or discussed on record during the public hearing. So this was simply an attempt on the part of staff, because it is such a massive record, to help organize the conversation and give the commission a place to start when going through deliberations, with the hope that as this starts to crystallize, you can give staff some direction so that we could prepare a draft set of findings and conditions or just findings, depending on where you go, for you to consider at the next meeting. So this is really to sort of help us frame what decision the commission may make. Does that make sense?
does that make sense, John?
yeah, it does.
So, would you like to go through each one of the findings to see, just to see where we stand, how we feel about how the applicant has addressed these issues?
I think that
Yeah,
might be,
this is Town Attorney Rob Avina. I agree with John and Abby that we kind of read those out as we deliberate on the record. There's not that many of them, and they're pretty short. And starting with 23.5.1, if someone can simply read what the conditions are, and then you can discuss them.
Right, that's where I was going with this, Attorney Avina. All right, so 23.5.1 is compliance with the adopted plan of preservation, conservation, and development. The proposed use of the subject site is consistent with the purpose and the intent of the town of Waterford's adopted plan of preservation, conservation, and development. This includes, but is not limited to, addressing types of uses that meet the changing needs of the community and aids in long-range goals of the plan. And such proposed use is one that is specially permitted within the zoning district. Now, we have a copy also of what the applicant has responded to and how they feel they have satisfied that need. Anybody have anything to address with that?
this is John. I don't have anything particularly to address, other than to note that I believe that based upon the exhibits and the testimony that's been provided, that the applicant has satisfied its obligation to show that its application it is consistent with the purpose and intent of the town of Waterford's plan of preservation, conservation, and development, in that, the property is located in an area identified as an industrial area on the business development plan. I am curious as to how, and I guess this is going to be covered by the Conservation Commission permit, but I am curious as to have confirmation from staff and others as to how we are going to be assured that the conservation easement area and the designated wetland non-encroachment areas will be established. Because my approval would be contingent upon those easements, that easement and the designation being put in place.
Okay. I think like Abby is saying here, John, these are some of the things that we want to look to them for direction on. And when Mark comes up with his summary of executive summary, and will give us some conditions for that need to be corrected as far as maybe site plan issues, things of that nature, with recommended actions. So we can put, they're down here writing their notes so that we can have them compile this perhaps for our next meeting. And then we'll have something with some teeth.
Yeah, this is Town Attorney Rob Avina again. And I also want to add to that comment that this is obviously a challenging project between two commissions. The Wetlands Commission has voted and it's been affirmed, and we are already beginning the process of reviewing with their counsel the lengthy conservation easement that will be going into place, with the Jordan Brook. And so we are in that process. So it is a coordinated effort there.
Typically, what would happen with an easement like this is that the language would be approved as to form by the town attorney and would be finalized and held by the town. And prior to occupancy or final, sort of final approvals, there would be a requirement that actually be accepted by the town and filed on the land record. So what we would do is come up with sort of a timeline of events in the approval process and construction process for a project. And by those certain deadlines, as a condition of a potential approval, that filing would have to happen.
All right, thank you, Abby. So I guess at this point, John, you feel that they have met the conditions of 23.5.1. The other commissioners in agreement with that?
Yeah, this is Tim Bleasdale. I agree with John that the applicants met its obligation to show the compliance with the plan of conservation and development here.
All right, Greg or Karen, do you have any comment?
No issue with that one.
No.
Okay, so it looks like we're all in agreement with that, and we can move on to the next item, which would be 23.5.2, orderly development. The location, type, character, and size of the use and of any building or other structure in connection therewith shall be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the town and the neighborhood, and will not hinder or discourage the appropriate development and use of adjacent property. Do we have any concerns, comments?
Yeah, this is Greg.
Yes, Greg.
I think this orderly development in conjunction with 5.9, which is the community character, health, and welfare, is my biggest concern with the project. I honestly don't know exactly what we would be approving in terms of the look of this development, and it concerns me greatly. This is on our 95 corridor, which we have some very nice developments on, and we've kind of defined the character of our frontage roads to be medical facilities, some nice senior housing, a distribution plant, physically pleasing, physically appealing, aesthetically pleasing from the 95 corridor. I'm very concerned that we don't know exactly what we're getting here. And I can point to The first picture that was submitted on front of the plans, which showed what appeared to be the front of the building, until you look at it and it says it's showing from the southwest. So you have to orient yourself with a map and realize that that's not the front of the building. The second visual we had from the applicant was a red-lined version looking from 95. It was a red outline of what we would see. When we were questioned on that, we were told that, well, you won't see it at all at the next hearing. And so I further asked for a rendering, and we got something else, a side view, which shows you wouldn't see it at all from 95, which I dispute significantly, because we have some exhibits that show you would see it. And then when we were questioned on it, we were told we wouldn't see it. But I think 95 in that area, if you drive through there, is higher than frontage road. So to take the look from frontage road right in front of a fence, if you're 2 feet tall and 1 foot away from the fence, sure, you're not going to see it. But from 95, you're certainly going to see it. And you're going to see the cranes, and you're going to see the lighting, and you're going to see the buildings. You're going to see the trailers. You're going to see things that are shown in Exhibit 29 from the other plants around the country. And I'm very, very concerned about what we're going to see from the highway and how we're going to affect the orderly development and the harmony of the neighborhoods in the frontage roads, because we've already started on a path. And just because it may be allowed in a zone doesn't mean that there's a character of the neighborhood within that zone. And I think we've already started to define the character of the neighborhood in these frontage roads. And I don't find that this particular site plan will be in harmony with the character of those zones. I'm also very concerned about the expansion of the building that was indicated would happen within 2 to 5 years. It's a 300-foot expansion, the size of a football field, coming out from the front of the building toward the highway, that we have absolutely nothing to look at what that's going to look like from the highway. Those are my biggest issues. It's an issue with 23.5.2, and accordingly with me, an issue with section 23.5.9. I really think in several years, when this commission looks back at our planning function, because we are a planning and zoning commission, when we look back at our planning function, I think we're going to regret an approval of this decision because of the orderly development of the neighborhood and the harmony with what we already have going on the frontage roads. For those two reasons, I'll be voting against it. I may be the only person voting against it, but I really believe strongly on those two issues that this applicant does not meet those two criteria.
All right, thank you, Greg. Greg, I just got one question. This zoned area right now, there are other commercial entities that could go in there without special permit, correct? So I guess my concern is when we looked at the rendering of the building, for me, it was not obnoxious. Considering the type of operation that it was going to be, it seemed like it was a fairly decent design as far as I was concerned. My concern is what can go in there that we really don't have a whole lot of say on. There could be a motor freight operation going in there where you have hundreds and hundreds of tractor trailers parked there all the time, where they get dropped off and picked up for distribution around the Northeast or wherever it may be. You know, so I guess you gotta kind of like pick your poison. What do you really want to go in there? I mean, and if you talk about a tractor trailer freight terminal, you're talking probably more traffic with something like that than what this plant would generate. Now, I know we don't know 100% what this is going to generate. They've given us traffic studies and those kinds of figures, but so I understand what you're saying, but in denial, what are we going to be settling for if this is a better choice? I guess that's where I'm coming from.
Just to respond to, the traffic considerations, I don't have an issue with traffic considerations, and I may not have a traffic consideration issue with another proposal. I'm just very concerned that we don't know exactly what we're getting. And I think that is to the applicant. I am a little disappointed in that we didn't get exactly what we were looking for. We don't have a really rendering of the property. We have 4 different renderings of it. Gonna see it, not gonna see it. Gonna see it from this side, but I want to see it from the front. You take a visual from the frontage road, but 95 is higher. That's my concern about it. I really wanted to like this development. I wanted to make sure that this plant was gonna fit right in. Frankly, if they turned the building and we saw that initial picture that was on the plans from the very beginning, if that was the view from the highway and everything was done behind the building, I think it might be a different story. But I don't know, and I think it's due to the applicant that we don't know what we're getting. And this expansion coming out of the front with a forgot what they called it, but it's a rail system coming out, bringing the concrete out to the front. I think we're gonna look back and we're gonna say, what did we do to our frontage road? That's my concern. And so I get what you're saying. It's sometimes be careful what you wish for. You deny something and then you get something that you really don't want there, or really doesn't fit into the character of the neighborhood. But I guess that's something that we have to be concerned about. But I really don't think that this is something that's going to fit into the character of what has already been established on the frontage roads. We have 2 medical facilities, we have senior housing, we have a nice distribution plant, we have Sonolis, we have the mall across the street. What's going to happen? So if this is the type of development that we're allowing in this zone, because the character is going to be something like being proposed, then that could go at the Crystal Mall, and that's going to be on 85. It's not that's not the character of the neighborhoods in that zone that we've established.
All right, well, I appreciate your honesty. Is there anybody else who has any questions or comments or concerns about 23.5.2?
Yeah, this is Tim Bleasdale. I just want to echo our chairman's comments that I didn't view the design as being particularly obnoxious or anything like that. And based on the site plans that were submitted and the footprints shown on that, I'm fairly confident I understand what I would be voting on in terms of the orientation of the building. And I know that there were some photos of some of this company's facilities in other parts of the country, which raised some concerns. But I think what's been proposed here is going to look different from those photos, just based on the vegetative buffer that has been proposed, the type of vegetative screening. We heard a lot of testimony, I think, from a landscape architect on that. I can't remember her name exactly, but and we also had some notes in here from our staff on this chart that, to help guide our discussion here. And I do read in here that, there's this possibility that one of the conditions we could suggest or require is, the showing of a 6-foot-high solid vinyl or wood fence in various places around the property to help with that screening component. So that's something that I would be interested in seeing. And then I have one question, I suppose, for the group here. With that 300-foot expansion, is that something that we could impose a condition now that they would be required to come back before the commission with a new site plan? Would that be, I guess, a major amendment?
Absolutely. You could condition that expansion, the proposed expansion area for the building has not been considered and approved And you can make a finding to that effect and require that they come back, absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
something that I would be interested in.
Yeah, this is Town Attorney Rob Avina. I think that is an interesting point, and I think we would put it in any conditions so that they would be in there noting that that possibility exists, but it'll have to come back to this commission with review of any modified site plans.
All right, thank you. Karen, do you have?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I was noticing, first of all, Abby, thanks for putting this matrix together. I think it's really streamlined things and made it easier to have this conversation. Talking about the plantings that they're going to be putting in and thinking about how slowly trees grow, can we recommend a minimum like 10-foot high fence if it's going to take 20 years for these trees to really fill in that they're going to block the view that we want blocked? I mean, is that a condition that we could put in instead of a 6-foot high fence that, you know, this building has already said it's going to be higher than other buildings and we gave them permission to be higher than other buildings. Can we make their fence higher than 6 feet?
Would we be covering that in 23.5.6, landscaping and buffers?
I think it comes up in a number of different places.
Okay.
I think in general, relative to the fence, I think the height is something the commission can certainly condition. 6 feet is sort of our standard because that's usually our building permit threshold for it. In this particular case, the locations that might be considered for future fencing wouldn't encroach on setback areas as required by the district, and therefore, if the commission wanted to look at something higher, it's certainly an option.
This is John. I do remember, as Greg does, and I'm sure other members do, one of the initial exhibits we received was this, I remember distinctly, this red box or a rectangle being drawn to show the height of the tower from the road. And then when they produced later on, after Greg's request, a little more detail as to what could be seen from the highway, they did kind of an angular view. And as Greg pointed out, yeah, if you're 2 feet tall and you're next to the fence, you're not going to see anything. But the way that they had that diagram that was produced seemed to suggest that that big rectangle that from an earlier exhibit, you could tell you could see from the highway, you no longer could see. So I do question what it is that you can actually see from the highway. I don't think that they've done a good job in presenting that to the commission. That being said, I am more inclined to kind of listen to what the commissioner has said in that, you know, this is an industrial zone. I do have a fairly good comfort level with what it is that they're proposing for the project itself. But I also agree that with respect to the any proposed addition to the project, that it is something that specifically must come back before the commission for approval, because we have no idea, you know, what that is and what it's going to entail and what we can see. So I am more inclined to show that it is an orderly in development. It does comply with 23.5.2. But acknowledging that the applicant hasn't done a very good job, in my opinion, of showing us what it would look like from the highway.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think we all realize, I mean, we got 70-foot silos, right? I don't think there's any way that those could be hidden from the highway. Maybe there is a way, I mean, but it'd have to be probably a good sized fence out of the border of the property. But so I think those are going to be visible myself, and just knowing the area and going down 95. So at any rate, I think those are going to have to be, there's no way those can be hidden, but at any rate, maybe there is a way. If there is, we'll have to put that as a condition, I suppose. So any other feelings on 23.5.2? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to 23.5.3, property value. The proposed use will not depreciate adjacent property values, and the size and height of all proposed buildings and the extent of all proposed site improvements shall both be such as to harmonize with the existing character of the neighborhood in which such use is to be established. Comments?
Well, I think here, the focus here, with respect to property values, I think is the effect on the properties that are to the south. Yeah, south of that storage yard. And what sort of screening is being provided in that area. And I know, and I think this is consistent with what Karen said, that the plantings, I think the plan for the plantings is extensive, but it will take time for that to be established. And in the interim, before that is established, I am not quite sure that whether it's a 6-foot fencing or any fencing, whatever might be proposed back there, is sufficient. And I think we need to be clear that there needs to be some kind of visual screening to the south of that storage area between it and the southern properties, at least until the vegetation has established itself.
All right, thank you, John.
Oh, and as part of that, I think this goes later on too. I think a comment that, and there needs to be a plan for replacement when trees die and they don't do what they're supposed to do. We need to understand, what that there needs to be an obligation for them to replace and repair.
Yeah, thank you, John. John, I agree with what you're saying there. I have great concerns of the residences on Devonshire. And I think there needs to be a more adequate buffer established there. And what I would like to see is firs or evergreens that are going to grow tall enough to restrict the view of that plant. And also so they don't lose the leaves in the winter months, which would expose that view even more. So that would be something I would be looking for. I don't know how the other commissioners feel about that.
This is Tim Bleasdale. I agree with both of the commissioners who are just speaking about the, this need for dependable vegetative buffer to the south of that yard there. And that was the Devonshire neighborhood, I think. And I agree, some evergreen plantings there would be helpful. And some kind of fence, whether it's the 6 or 10 or some other height fence, in the meantime to help sort of mitigate that until the vegetation really gets going.
Thank you, Tim. Anybody else? Do we know the elevations from Devonshire down to where the storage yard would be? Do we have any idea? Yeah, I'm just curious how high Devonshire is above. And Tim, when you mentioned the fence, how high that fence would have to be to restrict the view. Mark is getting the plan for the CD elevations.
One issue, I guess, when you're talking about viewing it from the south there is there may be a difference between screening some of those higher elements of the building, such as the silos, versus screening the view of the storage yard. I don't know whether those make a difference to the other commission members, but my thought with that had primarily been concerns about screening the storage yard. Is to the point that was made earlier, I think it would be very difficult to screen those very high elements of the building.
Yeah, I was just curious what the elevation would be of the storage yard versus the cul-de-sac on Devonshire. Okay,
We have here Exhibit 59, which is the overall grading and drainage plan. The difference in grade looks like, as I follow the contour lines, 72, 74. Looks like it's roughly the difference in grade of about 10 to 12 feet from essentially from the houses on Devonshire, not necessarily from the road. The contours don't go up that far to the road, to the cul-de-sac, but yeah, you're looking at a change in grade of roughly 12 to 14 feet from the properties on Devonshire to that internal ring road that they're proposing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else?
Well,
Yes.
one more question.
Go ahead,
So
Karen.
I was just thinking about this with the fence and the vegetation buffer. I think, and I'm not sure if we've really talked about this, but we're also going to have all these tractor trailers coming in possibly around dusk or at night. And in regards to Devonshire, do we need to be concerned at all about like the headlights, making it to be a distraction to the homeowners of those properties? That like the fence that we're discussing or the vegetation might resolve? I know everybody's talked about sound, but have we talked about?
Well, I think the intention of the vegetation ultimately, once it's established and in, is to serve as a visual barrier as well as sound, if you will, or at least attenuating sound.
Right.
But I think it's also intended to be a visual barrier. But I think there's a period of time in which, I know we have existing vegetation there that will help, but there is supplemental planting going in. And
Yeah.
until that's established, I don't know whether you're going to have that complete visual barrier. And I don't know, quite frankly, based upon the gradient that Mark has just expressed, whether for example, a 6 foot high fence, if you will, would help attenuate that in the interim.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking where, light travels and tractor trailer headlights travel further than say a, small compact car, that maybe we should just make sure that we're considering that in terms of, especially as the trailers will be moving around that circuit. I'm not sure how often, if it's like a repetitive, I think we should just take it into consideration. But I think you're right. If we can create a visual barrier that's going to prevent that, then that would be ideal.
Yeah, and I know we have the lighting study that's been done that has shown that the lighting that will be provided on the plant is designed to stay on the plant. I'm assuming that also means any lighting that's on the gantry cranes will also remain on the property. Won't be a bright light at the top of a gantry crane, for example, shining into the windows of somebody's home,
Right.
up on Devonshire.
But they've also said that any trucks that aren't owned by Fabcon that come onto the property are not subject to any of the sound restrictions or otherwise. They can't control who comes in and what they've got.
Right. No,
to
they
some
can't.
degree.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to remember, on the roadway that goes around the storage area, that has lighting on it, right?
There were lights, yes.
There were lighting. Now, I wonder if it would be enough lighting, where we could make a condition where at nighttime, the tractor trailers would have to turn their headlights off, providing there's enough light provided from the, overhead lights around the roadway. They could run with their running lights, but so that the headlights would not project towards the southern end.
Well, I don't know if you have to be that specific, but I think you could certainly make it a condition that headlights from the trucks shall not, intrude upon any of the properties that are to the south. And it's up to them to make sure how they figure out how they do that, whether it's putting a control in, an instruction to the drivers that they have to turn their lights off, or whether they need to have barriers. But I think we could certainly say that no lights from the operations are to be affect, offsite properties. And they've already shown that the permanent lights on the facility will do so from the lighting study. But your point is well taken. You have trucks going around that southern loop. They may be shining their light. I wouldn't want to be in one of those homes on Devonshire and having these trucks every 15 minutes coming down the South Road and shining their big lights into my, dining room window. But it'll be up to them to prevent that from happening. And that should be a condition, that they cannot have any of those lights from those trucks intruding upon those southern properties.
Okay. Sounds like a good point. Everybody's pretty much in agreement with that? Okay. Let's move on to 23.5.4, public safety. The nature and location of the proposed use and of any building or other structure in connection therewith shall be such that there is adequate access to it for the purpose of fire protection, police protection, and other emergency equipment. Anybody have any comments on this?
I think the only point that really came up on this was the point that was addressed by Exhibit 82, which was the stop bar for the larger vehicles, two large vehicles entering and exiting at the same time. I think they've addressed that through the addition of the stop bar.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, thank you. 23.5.5, traffic considerations. The streets serving the proposed use are adequate to carry all prospective traffic. Adequate provision is made for entering and leaving the subject site in such a manner that no undue hazard to traffic or undue traffic congestion shall be created. Adequate off-street parking and loading facilities are provided as required by Section 20 of these regulations. And the development of the subject site provides for the continuation and appropriate improvement of streets terminating at or proposed to be constructed through the lot on which the proposed use is to be located. This Parkway South is a public street at the responsibility of the town of Waterford, correct?
Yes, Attorney Avina, again, we've talked about maintenance, so we still have that road, absolutely.
Okay. So are we comfortable? Oh, I'm sorry, Karen.
Yeah, just one comment. I feel like it's been made clear by the residents of the Beechwood Estates that the Waterford Parkway South Road is in poor condition. And there's some question of when the state's going to hand that road over to us. And before we add more traffic to this road, should we, as a town, have some sort of plan of making that roadway better before we make it much worse? Or is that for a different day?
This is Town Attorney again, Rob Avina. Certainly a good point. We are starting to look back on the records, and there appears, let's just say, to be some confusion that just because the state didn't formally tender the paper deed to the parkways, we have always had the obligation under the agreement that they would even build us parkways, because not every town gets a parkway on I-95. That part of that agreement was we would be maintaining them once constructed. I've been around for a while, but it was even prior to my term that there was some, let's just say, loose interpretation that, well, those are state roads. Not in terms of maintenance. They were certainly state roads when they decided to reconfigure some of the exits over by Gardner's properties and the new exit and entrances that they built. But the continuing obligation on maintenance in my legal opinion, would be the towns. Now, we certainly need to face that as a town and as DPW and, with the first selectman and the board of selectmen as maintainer of roads and supervisor of roads, that an applicant or a property owner should certainly, under cases, be entitled to rely on the roads being in a certain condition, depending on the zones that my planning and zoning commission designate. That's in a series of court cases. So the applicant gets to say, there's a parkway in front of me. If it's substandard, then that really is a town obligation, except obviously for anything along their frontage. And they've already discussed with staff about helping to designate area of land for the completion of the cul-de-sac and other improvements down along their frontage. The rest of the issues seem to be off their frontage and on parts of the parkway that the town's going to need to consider for improvement.
Thank you, Ross.
I guess if I could follow up on that, Rob, with respect to the cul-de-sac proposal, how or should we be incorporating that into our deliberations? Is it a condition to approval? How do we figure in the proposed offer to for a portion of the property for expanding the cul-de-sac?
Sure. Town Attorney Rob Bavina again. John, I think what we need to consider is that the cul-de-sac is beyond the entrance of their property, so they'll be coming and going prior to the cul-de-sac. But in due consideration of safety down there, they're willing to dedicate a portion of the property necessary for the town to complete, which unfortunately looks to be at this point the terminus of the parkway. There were many, many ideas and plans tossed around with the state over these 30 or 40 years, whether that parkway would continue. And now it seems clear that to eliminate any more safety risks down there, we should properly conclude that road. So I would suggest working with staff that we will be putting in the condition that will be effective 15 days after approval, that they agree that they will be dedicating a certain portion designated on the site plan for future town improvements.
Any other questions, concerns?
This is John again. The only other issue I ever had on traffic related to the folks coming out of Beechwood Estates and looking to the east along the parkway. And I know a study was submitted as part of the record showing that when that facility was installed, that was deemed to be adequate sight lines. But nevertheless, there is a notation and a part of the record that was noted that the sight lines and the vegetation clearing and trimming of vegetation, which might be needed to afford a better safety for those residents leaving Beechwood, is a responsibility of the town. So as part of this discussion about improving the road itself with the town, we should include in that a discussion of maximizing and improving any sight lines that for the residents that are leaving the Beechwood Estates and looking to the east.
Do we know that the obstructions fall within the town's property?
I don't know if we know that.
No, see, that's what I was thinking. If it's within, what's it, so many distance from the curve of the road that the town owns
Yeah,
back.
right, within the town's right of way.
Right.
It would still be the town's responsibility to maintain
If it fell in the right of way.
if it fell within the right of way.
If it fell outside the right of way, then it would be responsibility of the Beechwood.
That's correct.
So,
And I agree. No, my comment is subject to that. I agree with all of that, Joe.
what was that again, John?
I agree with you, Joe, that what I'm talking about is only the portion, any vegetation that would be affecting sightlines that would be within the right of way of the town.
Okay. Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, if we're all set with that, we'll move on to 23.5.6, which is landscaping and buffers. The site on which the proposed use is to be located will be suitably landscaped to protect the neighborhood and adjacent property, and the proposed use of the subject property will not result in the loss of any existing buffering between the subject site and adjacent single-family residentially zoned properties. When adequate buffering is not found to exist, sufficient barriers between the proposed use and adjacent properties shall be provided. So this is a perfect opportunity for the one we were talking about, addressing at the southern end of the property, with additional landscapes and buffers. So I would say we probably have covered this one pretty much already.
This is Tim Bleasdale. I agree with that, and just refer back to everything we've already said about landscaping and buffering.
All right, thank you.
Agreed.
Okay, we'll move on. 23.5.7, relationship to utility systems, drainage systems, and impact on community facilities. The subject site has adequate water and sewage systems to service the proposed use. Adequate provision for stormwater drainage can be provided without adversely affecting neighboring properties or adjacent public drainage systems, and the proposed use will not adversely impact existing community facilities. So, as far as public water and sewer, I believe that is out there, correct?
Correct.
So that's not an issue. What would probably be the issue would be the stormwater drainage, which I believe they are addressing in their site plan.
Correct. There's some additional testing that they referenced in the last night of the public hearing. That has to do with in-situ testing that's required in our stormwater regulations for the zoning regulations under section 25. Those, I believe that those tests may have been underway at the time of the hearing or were going to be performed. So if this were to go forward, one of the staff suggestions is that the results of those tests be in, and any modifications required on the plans be completed prior to filing of those plans on the record. So I think there's certainly conditions that could be discussed relative to that. The other piece relative to stormwater is longer term any inspection reports or longer term elements in terms of the performance, both during construction and post construction, that information be shared with the town along the way, so that we can help keep an eye on how those systems are functioning over time, and to make sure that the maintenance required in them that's listed within the site plan design that the applicant submitted actually is being performed, and we can verify that over time.
Thank you, Ellie. Is that satisfactory to everyone? Karen?
I think that all sounds good to me.
All right, Karen, you have a comment?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the water consumption thing. I found, was it exhibit, I don't remember the number, 57 or 75? The one that Thomas, SCHADCT, I believe it was, I don't know how you pronounce it, submitted, where he was talking about the current water conditions in town. And I did like a back of the envelope calculation, and 11,000 gallons of water a day is over 4 million gallons a year. And I just want to make sure that we're thinking about like what that really means. And I know they said that when they do their expansion that they won't add any more water consumption, but I find that kind of hard to believe. And with the drought conditions from this summer, I think that we really need to look at, do we want a water intensive industry using our resources? Like you guys have said before, let's think about the planning ahead, and can we sustain this kind of business? I mean, and for their point of view as well, like, do they want to be in a place that they might not be able to get the water that they need to make their product? If this is going to be their largest manufacturing site in the country, are we prepared to provide the water for all of that?
They have to go to the water.
So the plans in the application, which included the water volumes proposed, was sent to the city of New London. And those comments, I forget which exhibit it is, but those comments were included, and that review was included in the exhibits presented back to the commission. There was no issue raised from the city of New London about the ability for the water to be provided at the volumes that the applicant was requesting. So there simply isn't anything in the record that would, from the city and the supplier, that would indicate that they have an issue.
Okay.
So just to follow up on that, is the city of New London, in the report, it was saying that the state of Connecticut thought that the water people in this area were kind of overly optimistic in their projections. Is that the same utility?
Well, New London is a private system. They have their own water system. It's not, some of the other ones, I believe, were community systems where they've serviced more than one town. And I know New London services more than one town as well, but that's a privately owned company, right?
Right, so the provisional water comes through them, and we don't have anything in the record from New London relative to their long-term projections on water availability or anything like that. So I certainly wouldn't want to speculate on the validity or opinion on validity of the long-term supply from their resources. They had every opportunity to comment to say that there, whether there would or would not be available water for the project, and made no indication on the record that they couldn't provide.
So we wouldn't have any sufficient grounds to deny on something like that.
I'm
I
not,
can't see anything in the record.
yeah, I'm trying to go back through my
Right.
recollection of the record, and I'm not sure I see it. I don't know if Attorney Avina, you have any opinion on this, but the record is the absence of comment from the city of New London, and the record is submitted by Mr. Scheck.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is just to add quickly, City Town Attorney Rob Avina. We obviously have a long-term water contract with the City of New London to provide the town of Waterford water, as well as Millstone and many of our major operations through the reservoir and through the town and New London facilities. We sort of have two systems that look at plans like this. We have the City of New London looking to provide the water, and we have the Waterford Utility Commission, in which the water will flow through our pipes, and which also sort of do a double check on any system problems that they would see within the town. In both cases, we don't have any, reaction or negative comment to the proposal that this applicant wishes to purchase water at that level and at that quantity. I think they did mention that they do some recycling of water so that a good deal of that water doesn't leave in the same amount of discharge through the sewer system, which of course we do operate. So that's what the record is. And of course, we're constantly looking at our water resources as the town of Waterford through the extension of that contract to sometime in 2030 or so. But we also have redundancies. Years ago, we put a Thames pipe under the Thames River, which connects to the Groton water system. And one of our towers in Quaker Hill is actually filled by that underwater Thames pipe and serves as a redundancy backup to the City of New London system, which we worked on many years ago. So we obviously want to be cautious about this, but the applicant also has to realize, as you mentioned, that if there is a drought, we're about 10 inches down this year, still not in extreme drought conditions, that those utilities will take the measures they take. And if everybody is restricted in their amount of usage, they won't be excluded. They will have to deal with that challenge as well as the rest of us.
All right, thank you, Rob. Does that satisfy your question, Karen?
I think so. I
Okay.
just thought it was worth talking about.
Okay, let's move on to 23.5.8, compliance with zoning regulations. In addition to meeting the other conditions described herein, the proposed use and the arrangement of all proposed buildings, structures, facilities, and other site improvements shall comply with all applicable provisions of these zoning regulations. I believe, and I'll have to go to Abby and Mark, but I believe that they've done a pretty good job of satisfying most of the regulations. I think there might be some conditions that you have to apply with.
Correct, and most of those that staff would recommend are relative to the landscaping and buffering that we've already talked about, and the in-situ testing, and any modifications to the stormwater, and then that any third-party review reports relative to stormwater management reports, and the function of the facilities over time be shared with the town.
Any comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 23.5.9, community character, health, and welfare. Design of buildings and sites has an effect upon the community character and health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors of the town. The nature and location of the proposed use, supporting infrastructure, building design and placement, use of dissimilar or excessive uniformity of materials, inappropriate application of architectural styles, spaces between buildings, circulation patterns, signs, lighting, the arrangement of plant material and site amenities, parking configuration and other site improvements, access to parks, recreation, and open space, and provisions for all alternative modes of transportation, including walking and biking, and promoting physical exercise through the use of materials. Patterns and textures to encourage walking shall be such that they enhance and contribute to an individual's physical and emotional well-being, positively impact property values, and help to define a neighborhood and the overall town character. This ought to be good.
Well, this is John.
This
I
is
mean, I'm sorry, go ahead, Greg. Why don't you start?
Okay, so I made most of my comments before. That's why I've been silent since then. But one of the things about this specific criteria was brought up after my comments, and that was the contingent or the condition that they have to come back to us for any expansion plans. So I have an additional concern about that. What happens if we get ourselves into the situation where this is approved, but yet in 2 years or 3 years, the expansion is absolutely necessary for their operations, but yet it's not approved because it's a significant expansion. And I really wish that everything was put on the table now so that we would know what we're approving. They would know what's being approved. They don't have to worry about coming back to us and potentially getting an important aspect of the business or of the property approved or not approved in 3 years when it's needed, but the board changes or we really don't like the expansion. We don't feel that it fits all the criteria at that point. That's a big concern to me. And, you know, it wasn't brought up by me to condition it. It was brought up by another commission member, but what happens in that situation? And I'd like to see the commission, you know, take the position that we need to see everything on the table now. But, you know, I think I don't know all by myself on this one. So, but that's just my comments. I just want to be able to put that out there to have the commission members think about that. What happens in 3 years when we're really in a pickle?
Thank you, Greg. My understanding would, and unless I'm wrong, please let me know. But basically, my understanding is that the addition that they would do, I mean, the rail system is already going to be in existence at the time that they are looking to expand. Is that correct? And they were just going to enclose it.
They haven't provided.
Well, I believe on the plans, the rail system is shown as going in now. And the proposed future is the building expansion to cover that system.
Right. So we're not going to be expanding the footprint of what their operation is, but more so enclosing a section of their operation down the road. That was my understanding. I mean, I don't know what that, and I don't think any of us know what that proposed expansion is going to look like. So that would definitely be a question. I understand what you're saying there, Greg.
Right, and that's all my concern is. I really want to like this and approve this project. I just can't, given these uncertain issues. That's my issue, is the uncertainty of some of the issues.
All right, can we, is it a possibility to put as one of the conditions that they provide us with what that building would look like once it is enclosed? Or once that expansion?
Once they, yeah, I mean, any change to the building, any change to the site, certainly would go through the same process that they've gone through now. So, they would still have to go in front of the design review board, they'd still have to come in from the planning and zoning commission for approval for a modified site plan. So yeah, at that time. yeah.
At that time, but there's no way to put as a condition to provide some type of architectural rendering of what that would look like.
That may change. I mean, we don't know. I don't know. if
This is John. Having worked with a number of companies who've built large facilities over the years, it's really hard to say what a particular structure or use is going to be required 1 year, if let alone, or certainly 2-3 years, let alone 1 year down the line. I think it's because nothing even then would restrict them from coming back a year from now and saying, well, what we gave you, today, well, we've had to change that because market conditions have changed, or the process has changed. There's been a new technology that's come out. I mean, there's going to be a whole host of reasons why that could change. I think we just have to, understand, basically as a condition that says whatever it is that you're going to propose, it has to come to us. And I understand Greg's point, which is having authorized them to build this large plant, if that's the way that we go, and then they come back and say, well, in order for us to keep these jobs and to continue to do this, we need X. Yeah, is there going to be this pressure to do it? Yeah, that's there, but there's still a risk that we could say no, or we could put conditions on it. Personally, I find it difficult trying to say to an applicant, as a condition of me approving what you've given me today, that you kind of have to let me know what you're going to do a year from now, or 2 years from now, or 3 years from now. I don't think it's realistic to put that on an applicant. That's my personal opinion.
Thank you, John. Anyone
Yeah,
else?
this is Tim Bleasdale. I agree with what John just said. I think, anytime we approve any kind of commercial or industrial development, there's always going to be that question of what changes might be coming down the road, due to their business needs or whatever else there might be. I think in that sense, it is perhaps nice that the applicant here has given us a little bit of a preview of what they're considering, enough that we know that we have some concerns, and that we can impose appropriate conditions to that. I think that's all I have to say about that particular piece.
All right, thank you, Tim. Karen, you got anything?
Kind of on taking a different tack. So if you guys want to finish this up, and then I'll bring up my idea.
Okay. I guess I'm kind of in agreement with John and Tim and Greg. I completely understand where you're going with this, and I respect that position. But I would, as long as we have condition on here that they have to come back for approval for anything that they do as far as expansion or anything of that nature, I would be comfortable with that at that point. And like John says, If we don't feel it's good at the time, we can always deny it as long as we have legitimate reasons to deny it. So I'm comfortable with that. Okay, that said, we have gone through the 9.
Wait,
Oh, Karen, I'm sorry.
don't forget about me.
No, I can't. My buddy Abby keeps pointing out your little hand up there, and I keep missing it. Go ahead, Karen.
So this actually just occurred for me based on what we saw from a previous applicant this evening. One of the big comments I feel like came up from the residents of Beechwood was that many residents walk along the Waterford Parkway South, and they're concerned that with the increase in traffic that there might be more of a danger for people who are just trying to get a little exercise. In looking at the site plans, you know, they have, I don't know, what is it, 40 acres or something that they're not doing anything with on the, is it the north side of the property? Behind where Beechwood is? They're going to be all in the airport strip area, and then there's that other portion of the property that they're not doing anything with. Has there been any consideration, just thinking about what we saw earlier tonight, where they were doing that little walking path around the proposed Great Neck, that perhaps the residents of Beechwood might be allowed to walk in that wooded area? Or from the town's point of view, could we build a sidewalk when we do the road repairs on Parkway South? I think it's just worth noting that with the increase in traffic, that part of what make the neighbors feel a little bit better about their new neighbor is if they feel safe when they exercise. And if they can't be on that road, then maybe they can walk in the woods. But I don't know if we can do that.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult to condition access onto private property between private owners. I do think that there's an opportunity for the town to evaluate over time whether or not there is a need and a justification for improvements to the parkway. But it would probably be up to a private negotiation between the two property owners and those interests relative to whether or not folks from the Beechwood property would be allowed onto that portion of the airport property. So I think, well, it's understandable. I don't think as a function of this approval, you know.
Yeah, I understand that.
Access
Yeah,
that way would be allowed, but
I think maybe then it's worth saying that when we consider rebuilding Waterford Parkway South or making that road better, that we consider putting a sidewalk for the residents so that they feel safer in their neighborhood.
Mhm.
Well, you know, the problem with that, Karen, there's no sidewalk along the entire road. So if they decided that they wanted to head west with their walk, there's no sidewalk that way either. So are we looking at the town constructing sidewalk from Crossroads all the way down to the cul-de-sac?
I mean, I guess I would say potentially, because when that first went in, I would say the traffic on that road was fairly minimal. I mean, the Coke distribution plant came in later, and now we're adding this other one later. So, I mean, for a time, they were the only people using that road.
Yeah.
I think it's worth considering.
Yeah, no, I completely understand what you're saying there, Karen, but I think there has to be some understanding on their behalf that this is an industrial zone. It's not a residential zone, although they have residences in that zone.
Sure, yeah. And I think they knew that kind of coming in, but I also, you know, when you're building something in 1990 and then 20 years later, tractor trailers move in next door, you know, things evolve.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
It sounds like there could be an opportunity through the upcoming plan of conservation and development revisions, trail planning for the town, some of those bigger picture pedestrian projects that I think is absolutely worthwhile for the town to really focus on in the future. I think that would be a great place to bring that up and start looking at places that we want to help connect. And then, you know, during those plans, you can approach landowners in a separate conversation about whether they'd be willing to look at a trail system or those types of things. So I think the point is well taken, even if it's not something that is directly perhaps one that would be conditioned in this application.
All right, thank you, Abby. Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, this is Tim Lisa. I just, thanks to Karen for bringing up the Beechwood Estates again. I did want to just comment that I'm not terribly wild about this, the proximity of these, of this proposed development to the Beechwood Estates. But to our chair's point, you know, this is an industrial zone, and we heard a lot of testimony from the folks that live over there. And my sense of their testimony was that, while they had concerns about the project, the majority of their concerns seemed to me to be geared towards traffic considerations and the state of the road, which I know is ground we've already covered tonight. It seemed less to me to be about, you know, the design of the building and the look of it in their neighborhood and that sort of thing. So I guess overall, what I'm saying is, as far as the 23.5.9 goes, while I generally don't like the idea of us having residential uses in industrial zones, specifically because this kind of situation is eventually going to come up, in this case, I don't have any concern that would make me vote against it.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so in the interest of time, I would say at this point, staff has all our comments. Adequate enough to come up with
Sure, I think so. I
a
think,
summary.
yeah, right. I think for the next meeting, we can be prepared to present to the commission.
Yep.
Series of, you know.
A draft decision,
Actually, a
right.
draft special permit.
Yep.
With conditions, that were discussed tonight.
And so what we'll do is we'll flesh those out in greater detail, and again, have something to you well in advance of the meeting so that you have the opportunity to think about it going into it, and then we can discuss that, and the commission could potentially take action at the meeting on the 14th, or if there's additional work to do, you can advise us then.
Is that satisfactory with everybody?
Yes, that sounds good to me.
Yes.
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 All right, thank you, everybody. We, appeals -16, 20-16 will pick up again at our next meeting. Okay, item number 7 is correspondence.
We have none.
And the item number 8, administrative review, the fiscal year 2020 annual report. Well, I believe we have that in front of us.
Yep, so at the last meeting, folks had wanted to take a little bit of a longer look on this. We have submitted the report in its draft form because it was due on Friday. So if there's any modifications to it, I think we're hoping to take a look at that now and hear if there's anything you would like us to change.
Any questions or comments?
This is John. I think it's a good report. I really I made a few comments last time. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you, John. Anybody else?
This is Tim. I think the report looks good, and I always find it interesting when we get this at the end of the year.
This is Greg. I'm good with it.
Okay. All right, so we need a motion to accept this?
Yes.
All right, if I can get this in a form of a motion to accept this report?
This is John. I move that we approve the Planning and Zoning Commission 2019-2020 annual report.
Second, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
And I'm in favor, so moved. Thank you. Okay, we have item number 9, adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Bye, stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, stay safe.